Hello, my name is Dawad of Israel Awake, and I'd like to welcome you to this third installment of this video series entitled The Good News to the Descendants of the Survivors of the Transatlantic Slave Trade, a biblical perspective, a biblical historical perspective. So this message primarily goes out to anybody out there, my brothers and my sisters, who can identify with being a descendant of the slaves that were taken primarily from the west coast of Africa and scattered, if you like, throughout the West Indies, to the Caribbean islands, all of the Americas, as what we know as the transatlantic slave trade. So to all of you, this message goes out to you. I'm reaching out to you. If you don't identify with that group of people that I'm referring to, that I'm reaching out to, you're actually welcome to watch. You're most welcome. All right. This isn't about, if you like, alienating anybody else primarily. But I make no apology for reaching out to my brothers and my sisters, descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, because the message pertains to you. All right. So anybody else, most welcome. I hope you get something from the video. That's all very well and good. Okay. Right. All right. I think what we'll do, we'll go straight into it. So this is the third installment. So clearly to precede this one, if you've not yet seen parts 1 and 2, I would encourage you to do so. You'll find it on this channel, on this YouTube Israel Awake channel. I would encourage you to take a look. But what I'm going to do now then is get some slides up so that we can pretty much continue with the message. All right, so let's get this presentation up and running. Okay, right. So as I say, my name's Dawad. That's my Hebrew name, okay, that I go by, okay, which the English translation would be David. Yeah, some pronounce it Dawid, okay, but I go with the Paleo Hebrew pronunciation of Dawad. Okay, so that's me. Most welcome. Let's get moving on. Okay, so just again, I think it's always best to do a brief summary of what went on before, but it's no replacement, if you like, no substitute for going and seeing the previous recordings. Okay, previous recordings there. So please do. All right. So what we've done so far is we've looked at the authority of the Bible. Okay, we've looked at the authority of the Bible from the perspective of prophecy. All right, and clearly the message here is to look to see what we can learn about Israel. Israel as a people. Who were they? Who are they today? And what's next for the nation of Israel in accordance with the Holy Scriptures? Okay, so that's the, if you like, the theme. That's the topic that we're continuing with. All right. So as I always do, just to get this out. Now, some of this material, whether you may be familiar with the Bible, you may not be familiar with the Bible. You may agree with the Bible, you may disagree with the Bible. Either way, I welcome one and all to view this material. And all I ask of you is that you hear it out, that you hear the content of this video, and in fact, that you hear the content of the series of videos that I'm putting out there, all right? Because my role is to get this information out there, yes, for you to hear, for those who are drawn to it to hear, okay? So I draw your attention to some scriptures that, if you like, back up what I'm saying, okay? So Proverbs chapter 18, verse 13, okay? He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is a folly and a shame unto him. Okay, so words of wisdom here. Okay, and it makes sense, doesn't it? It's not the best thing to answer something before you've had a fair hearing. It's like a court case. You listen to both sides of an argument. It's like in families and with friends. it's always best to listen to both sides of an argument. It's always best to at least hear it out. Then you can make an informed decision as opposed to making a rash one. So I appeal to you, please hear the matter out, because there will be things probably that will be disagreeable, that conflict with what you've been taught and what you've always held to be true. Okay, that's bound to happen. Okay, for a lot of people. So I'm encouraging you to hear it out, hear the content of this video, and indeed the series as we go along. Okay, and like I say, if you've not watched the previous videos, I encourage you to do so. Okay, second verse that I like to bring out right at the beginning is from John, the Gospel according to John, chapter 10, verse 27, which reads, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." Okay, so this is the words of Yahushua, yeah, the Messiah, Mashiach. Okay, making it clear that his sheep, those who hear his voice, those who follow him hear his voice. So this is a given. Okay, I can't do anything about that. I can't get you to hear his voice. I can't prevent you from hearing his voice. If you are his sheep, you will hear his voice. Okay, and you will build on that. Yeah, you will follow him. Okay, so that's out of my control. I'm giving the information out there. The sheep will hear. Okay. Next verse, John again, Gospel according to John again, chapter 6, verse 44. "No man can come to me," again the words of Yahushua, "no man can come to me except the Father which hath sent me draw him, and I will raise him up at the last day." Okay, can't get any clearer than that, really. Okay, no man can come to Yahushua the Messiah except the Father which sent him draw them. Okay, so it's not, the calling is not my call to make. I can't draw people to him. Okay, and neither can I prevent people from being drawn to him. That's down to the Most High. All right. So why do I say that? I say that to say this, that the whole purpose of this video and the series isn't to struggle with you, isn't to try to convince you of anything really. Okay, it isn't to try to convert you. Yeah, it's to give you the information, right? And then that's between you and the Most High. Okay. All right. So background before. Clearly, I'm not going to spend much time on this because we've seen it previously. All right. I gave just a little summary of the background to the scriptures and to highlight the fact that there has been an attempt, an historical attempt, to keep the Holy Scriptures from the masses, and especially from a group of people. Okay. We've seen that, you know, there's been different versions, and the effect of which was only limited people could understand those versions because of the language limitations, such as you know, in Europe, translating it from the original Hebrew over into the Greek and also over into the Latin. Okay, so you know, for a lot of people in Europe, and let's be clear that the Scriptures is not a European book. It wasn't written by Europeans. Yeah, it's a book of the Israelites, written by the Israelites, and Israel actually being northeastern Africa, because it's on the African tectonic plate. Okay, and there's other very good scholarly works to back that up. No doubt going forward we can look at things like that. But anyway, there has been this attempt to keep the Bible from the masses. One of the most classical instances of this would be the slave Bible, where 90% of the Old Testament that we have access to today was removed, and 50% of the New Testament, which we actually have access today, was also removed. The idea to keep the slaves in spiritual bondage as well as in physical bondage. All right. So, so it's an interesting thing to note. We've looked at this before. Page from the slave Bible, literally to the Negro slaves. It does what it says on the tin. They make no bones about it. They're not trying to hide it. They didn't try to conceal it. Okay. It's just the way things were. All right. So we looked at that previously. We then looked at the fact that the Bible is packed with prophecies. Now, this adds to the credibility and the authority of the Scriptures. Okay, because it's the one area where the God of the Bible, the Lord, Yahweh, okay, where he challenges all other wisdom traditions on the point of prophecy. Very important point to bear in mind, okay? There is no other book like it. There is no other book like the collections of books in the scriptures, okay, with its collection of the prophets. And these are all prophets of Israel, or in Paleo Hebrew, Yasharal. Yeah, Israel is Yasharal in the Paleo Hebrew. Okay, so there's no other prophets like unto the prophets and the prophecies that we find in the Holy Scriptures. Absolutely amazing when you do the research. Okay, the prophecies do bear out when you do the cross-referencing with actual historical events. Okay, when you literally study historical events from secular sources, you'll find that the prophecies have been revealed and that the scriptures actually has 100% accuracy rate when it comes to detailed prophecy. All right. So what's the point in mentioning this? This is the authority of the scriptures. It would take a divine intelligence to be able to foresee events centuries often before the actual event materializes, okay, and comes into actuality. Okay, that's the point, okay? There's no comparison when it comes to biblical prophecy, okay? So we've seen this in previous versions. I'm not going to go there now. We touched on the prophecy seen in Daniel, the book of Daniel, chapter 2, amazing timeline of the kingdoms that were oppressive, if you like, who dominated, shall I say, the nation of Israel, okay? Which will end with these kingdoms. These kingdoms will end, it won't last forever. And actually following these prophecy, you can see we're actually in the end times, okay? Awaiting the real New World Order, not the New World Order that you may have heard of, which is the concept of men, but actually a divine new governance, new world governance, the kingdom of Alahayam, yeah, the kingdom of God, all right? So, why be bothered about Israel? We touched on that because the whole Bible is Israel-centric. From Old right through to the New Testament, Israel-centric. When you do the line upon line, precept upon precept, okay, here a little and there a little, bring all the scriptures together, it becomes very clear that the Bible is Israel-centric, okay? Israel are a special people unto the Most High, chosen, okay? Again, if you're unaware of that, please look at the previous videos, okay? So we looked at that, and we realized that in the scriptures, we see there is mention of false Jews, because as well as identifying who the true Jews and the children of Israel are today, it's worthwhile also doing a study into who they are not. Okay, so we looked at that last time. There's so many different various sources that I've not, if you like, brought out yet in this video series. Clearly, you know, time is limited and all the rest of it, but I did pick a few, such as Arthur Koestler with the 13th tribe. He himself was Jewish born, if you like, you know, but actually came out with information to show that actually, although he's supposed to be Jewish born, that actually his people out there in the land of Israel today are actually the original biblical Hebrew Israelites, if you like. All right, so very interesting, coming from, you know, coming from the horse's mouth, if you like. All right. Again, same thing with Benjamin Harrison Friedman. These are just examples of those who aren't ashamed to speak their truth and what they've found. And that's what this is all about, by the way. It's not about, you know, hating a group of people or being malicious towards a group of people. Not at all. It's all about truth, just seeking truth and you know, and having that discussion. All right. So I won't labor the point. Okay, so literally, there's a historical, once you do the research, it's actually amazing to find out that actually the original Israelites in the year AD 70, when Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, was sacked by the Romans in the year AD 70, Anno Domini, which is in the year of our Lord in the Latin, or as it's called the Common Era, so CE today, that's the most popular terminology being used to, if you like, track time. Okay, but we see the works of people like Flavius Josephus, where we learn that the Israelites went deeper into the continent of Africa. Okay, we learn that these people are a dark-skinned people. We see that in historical accounts. We also see that in the biblical accounts. All right, so clearly, the this is the original characteristics and features of the original Israelites. Okay. Um, we see that in Africa. Lots of tribes attest to this, that they trace their origins back to Israel. They see themselves as Israelites who settled in these other parts of the African continent. So classic examples, the Ashanti from out of Ghana, Igbo, Yoruba, Mandinga, Lemba, Falishas, etc. Okay, and there's more and more waking up all the time. And real scholarly work also reveals this. One classic is Rudolph R. Windsor. Really, really good, at least a really good book. If you've not read before, a good book to read to get going with your research and to help point you in the right direction. Okay. As I mentioned before, there's works like the author Richard Owen, where he was doing a study on animals, and just in passing in the book, or just in passing, mentions other Jews being black people, so-called black people, to use that terminology. All right. So we see that. We looked at some of the maps, because maps tell a history. When you look at the history of maps, and we've seen that there were places on maps of West Africa that alluded to the tribes of Israel. Okay, very, very interesting topic in and of itself, really. Okay, so we did that. So it became, we looked at then who are Israel today, starting with some of the biblical scriptures as well regarding that. Okay, so we've seen again this knowledge, this truth that actually the Israelites were and are a dark-skinned people. All right, primarily and fundamentally. Okay, so we looked at that. I'm not going to go into that right now. Okay, we then saw, well, if the Israelites are a dark-skinned people, how and why are they portrayed in media, in films? Charlton Heston's Ten Commandments, with Moses portrayed as a European looking and all the rest of it. How did we get there? And we see that this really started to get going during the time of the Renaissance period. Okay, where you had a lot of the whitewashing of the imagery. Prior to that, lots of churches in Europe they had no issue showing the original paintings, which were the dark-skinned people. All right, so we see that as a result of the Renaissance period, and thereafter, we find this Europeanization, if you like, of the images. Yeah, and that's why today we're seeing the biblical characters and the Messiah portrayed as Europeans, basically. But we looked at that. We looked at some of the imagery before now, which clearly indicates a dark-skinned people. All right. All right. Also, one of the great markers and identifying markers for the children of Israel is basically the covenant. All right. Keep my covenant. Blessings. This is what the Lord Most High said, really, to summarize. But if you don't keep my covenant, there will be curses, there will be penalties, there will be consequences to breaking the covenant. All right. So now this is very interesting because we looked at some of those. History reveals that we didn't keep the covenant. Therefore, as a people, the curses would pour out upon the children of Israel. Okay. We started looking at some of those curses, and that's what we're going to continue doing today. We started looking at some of those curses. All right. We see in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 46, that these curses, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder upon thy seed forever. That means it will be perpetual until repentance. Yeah. So as we repent, then we're rescued from the curses and brought into the blessings. But as a nation, of course, all right, we're still experiencing some of these things. So this is very key, because really what this is, it's like a checklist. Yeah. You want to know who the true people of the Bible are, the true Israelites? Well, they will basically be demonstrating the curses as laid out in Deuteronomy primarily. Yeah. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 16 through to 68, where we see these curses outlined. Okay, so we looked at before, we've seen that the true Israelites would be cursed in the city, cursed in the field. Yeah, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 16. Okay, so we looked at that briefly last time round in the second installment. Okay, we've seen how the Israelites, okay, they're going to be cursed in the city. That means they're not going to be doing well in the city. Yeah. So you know, the poorest areas, the most underinvested areas, the most troubled areas, that's where you will find the true children of Israel. Okay, according to the biblical narrative. All right, but that's what would happen. Okay, and it would be forever. It would be in perpetuity, perpetually. Okay, until things change, until the return of Israel, which is very interesting and which is actually underway. But one step at a time. Okay, so curse in the city, also curse in the fields. Yeah. Now, don't forget, we're not talking about ones and twos of people. I'm sure people from many nations would have a hard time in the cities, but we're talking as a body of people. Okay, as a people, not the ones and twos, not the exceptions to the rule, but as a people. All right? Yeah, for the most part. All right, we find that. We find that our people, the descendants of the slave trade, we find them in the cotton fields, in the sugarcane fields, under bitter bondage. All right. So moving from there, this is the slide that we left off on last time. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eye shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hand. Again, I'm sure this could happen to anybody of any race, but I'm talking about a people as a whole who this has happened to. Okay, now clearly the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade can attest to this. This was a classic occurrence and part of the whole harrowing saga of what took place as part of the slave trade. Yeah, children being separated, yeah, from their parents. Okay, and we see in many perspectives, even for those, because as a people we were scattered. That's one of the curses, scattered throughout the world. A lot of our people actually ended up in what we call today Spain and Portugal. Okay, a lot of what's called the Spanish Inquisition. It was the Israelites who fell prey to that Inquisition. Okay, and as a result, had to leave places like Spain, and families were torn apart, kids torn apart. Okay, and then before those from Spain ended up onto the continent of Africa, and many of them then finding their way onto slave ships later on. Okay, so it's a very, very interesting history, very, very interesting study when you trace back, the different migration routes of the children of Israel, having scattered from Israel in the year AD 70. All right, so we see that. Let's have a look then. And remember, now what we're doing is we're not just looking at these curses in isolation. All along, you've got to be thinking, well, who as a people has this happened to? Because as you do that, by process of elimination, you end up with only one people who can attest to all these curses. Now, I'm not going to go for every single one, but I encourage you to do so. And as you do, you keep asking yourself, who as a people is this happening to? All right? And it's actually a clue to help you to get to your, to the quest for the truth. All right? So, moving on to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 36. Let's have a look at this one. The Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. Okay, so again, this is saying to the Israelites that what will happen if you breach the covenant, okay, that another nation is basically going to take you over, all right, onto another nation which you will not have known, all right, and there you shall serve other gods. So that means no more would the Israelites see the God of Israel and his laws, statutes, and commandments as their ultimate one and only deity to worship. Yeah, but will actually start worshipping the, if you like, the gods, and taking on the beliefs, the religions, yeah, of other nations, the nations of their captors, and then other nations who would influence them. So no longer a pure and exclusive worship and devotion to the God of Israel. All right. So that's very, very important, because again, you'll find the descendants, our people, my brothers and sisters, throughout. You name the religion, there will be people from represented there. All right. That's not by accident. That's not by accident. Okay. Okay. Let's keep exploring. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 37. Let's have a look at this particular curse. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whether the Lord shall lead thee. Did you catch that? Right? Become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations. So what's being said here is that the true Israelites, okay, would be looked down upon, basically, by all other nations. So, which nation of people, which group of people, which body of people can identify with this? Now, you may say, well, that also sounds like, the Jews that we find in the land of Israel today. Okay, they've undergone a lot of so-called anti-Semitism and all the rest of it. So that could fit them. You know what's interesting about that? Even amongst those who were called Jews today in the land of Israel, okay, our people are still looked down on by them. And if you do the history, you'll find that a lot of these slave traders were actually of so-called Jewish stock, from the people that you would identify as Jews today. All right, not trying to. This is not about hatred. It's about a quest for truth. As I said before, I've said this in a previous video, if those who are being called Jews today were indeed the Jews, I'd have no issue with that. I've never had an issue with it before when I didn't have access to this material. But I've got a decision to make. I either come into contact with this type of information and material and ignore it, or look into it further and learn. I chose to look into it further and learn. Okay, and like I said, it's not just coming from people of my persuasion, but those amongst the Jewish nation themselves are coming out saying this, and they have been doing so. Okay, I gave some examples of that. So I respect those people, because they too are clearly on a quest for truth. Okay, so it's very important to mention that. Okay, so, and thou shalt become astonishment, a proverb. So what does that even mean? Look at all the stereotypes, all the negative stereotypes surrounding and targeting the descendants of the slaves of the transatlantic slave trade. I mean, you don't have to look far, do you? I mean, I've given just a quick example here, going back to the 20s, yeah, of a program that was called The Coon. Yeah, let's have a look. This is, let's have a look at the write-up to that. He is the black buffoon, naive, childish, silly, and used for comic relief. Amos and Andy, first voiced on radio by white actors in the 20s, then black actors on TV. Okay, so we know about people blacking up, black and white minstrels. If you look at a lot of the early movies, you'll see black people portrayed, or the descendants of the slaves portrayed as buffoons, the comic relief, the scared, childlike. Yeah, not able to really manage their own affairs, needing a leader. And funnily enough, if you look at a lot of the modern movies today, for anybody anybody who's a descendant of the transatlantic slave trade, we can all identify, can't we? You know, how many times we've had to say, "Oh, look, a black guy on the screen. I bet he's going to be the first one to get killed," and then lo and behold, often, more often than not, the first person to get killed, like in a maybe in a thriller movie, what have you. All right. I'm not saying all movies, but people of my persuasion and my experience can identify with that. All right. Because that legacy is still there. You see. Yeah. Very rarely do we find black people taking the real major frontline roles of leadership, strength, courage, and all the rest. It happens, don't get me wrong, but you get the point. Anybody who is sincere and true about this will totally understands what I'm saying here. All right. So it's a legacy. Yeah. It's because we're seen as an astonishment people. Okay. A proverb. You know, black people. Oh, they're lazy. Look at all this stuff. Why racism? What's racism built on? It's negative stereotypes. So this is a curse, you see. Yeah. A proverb. Yeah. Proverb. Oh, black people are lazy. They're untrustworthy. Most likely to be criminals. Most likely to be drug. All these things. Yeah. So bywords. Yeah. So not called by our biblical name. Yeah. But you know, words like the N word. Yeah. I mean, this curse is so so persuasive that our own people use it. Yeah, the N word. Yeah. So among all nations, and we do find that all nations look down upon the transatlantic slaves. Yeah, we've seen a bit of an interesting development, post the murder of George Floyd. Yeah, but we're by no means there yet in terms of the absolute shift in attitudes and perspectives regarding our people. So very interesting one. Let's keep moving on. Okay, look at this curse. Yeah, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Okay. Again, as a body of people, in whose communities do we see this played out? If you look at the communities of the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade, yeah. So as I say, I'm recording from the UK, United Kingdom. Yeah, I can tell you. If you look at in London, yeah, be it north, south, east, west London, okay, wherever you find high concentrations of my brothers and sisters, okay, you'll find, yeah, you can find, black businesses, so-called black businesses, okay. But it's always interesting that those who come into the areas and open up their shops tend to go a lot further and do a lot better. Yeah, what you'll find is even amongst our own people, a lot of our own people will have this propensity to want to shop in another, in a business or in a shop that is run by somebody outside of their own people. Okay, it's one of the reasons why, and it's not. This is not to knock those other nations. If you can make money in our community, then as a business person, why wouldn't you? Yeah, you can't necessarily knock the Asians or the Far Easterns, the Chinese, you name it, or whoever they may be. All right, but there's a reason for that. All right, whether you're, wherever you are up and down the country, you'll find that, and even outside of the UK, clearly, right, you find the same thing. You hear people of our people saying the same thing in their areas. All right, the other nations do better in our own communities, in the communities of so-called black people. You find that the reason why I say so-called black people is because simply because black is not a nationality. All right, just to be clear. All right. So when you hear me saying so-called black people, I'm saying black because most people identify us as black people. Yeah, but it's not black is not a nationality. Yeah, we didn't come from a land called officially black land. Okay, and it's not bloodline. Okay, So to actually to use those terms is to again is to sever yourself from your nationality and your bloodline actually. All right, so it's a very important point to make. Okay. But for now, I will use just so I'm not losing people. Sometimes I will be using the term black people, but just to be clear on that. All right. So the stranger that is within thee will shall get very high. I see whatever community I go to, I see that. All right, our people, my brothers and sisters, in their communities, you see this played out. Okay, let's keep moving. Okay, so but before I do, actually, yeah, you don't often find that in other people's communities. Yeah, you don't often find other nations of people coming into other people's communities and going further than if you like, the indigenous community member, if you like, to use that term. All right, so. Um, Very, very interesting, very revealing. And remember, we're not taking these curses in isolation. When you bring them together, it points to a specific people. All right, that's the point. Okay, moving on from there, let's take a look at this one. So if the others are not convincing, then let's dig deeper still. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 48. Let's read this one. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies. Serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Okay, what does that mean? Let's just break this down a little bit. Okay. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies. Well, that's servitude. That's slavery. Yeah? To serve your enemies is servitude. That's slavery. Okay? Yeah. Now actually, why such mighty? Because actually the Lord had allowed it. It's part of the breach, it's part of the penalty of the breach of the covenant. Yeah. In hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. Okay, what does that even mean? It means you'll have to, you won't be self-sufficient to feed yourself. Yeah, and you find that all around you, the major supermarkets, yeah, and all the rest of it, not run by descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. Yeah, the water companies. Yeah, when you want a drink, when you turn that tap on, the water companies, not owned or not run by, my brothers and sisters. Yeah, even the clothes that we wear. Okay, if you may find a brand, yeah, but where's the material coming from? Yeah, again, for the most part, not owned or not run by my brothers and sisters. Yeah, so this is what's made you see. Serving in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness. So for all these things, you're going to have to go. Basically, what it's saying is, for all these things, you're going to have to go to your captors. You're going to have to go to your enemy for these things because you will not be self-sufficient as a people. That's what Israel is being told here. This is what Israel was being warned about here in Deuteronomy. Yeah. So and in one of all things, yeah, even even in birth, it's not our people that issue the birth certificates, death certificates, and all the rest. One of all things, you're wanting the banks, you're wanting a loan, right? For the most part, there's always exceptions, but for the most part, all right, that's the point. Okay, and I guess even more revealing, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck. Now that's very specific, isn't it? Okay, remember, we're talking about as a people, not the ones and twos. I'm pretty sure there will be examples of people from other nations who can attest to having a yoke of iron around their neck. But predominantly, for the most part, as a people, well, again, My brothers and sisters can. We can attest to that, right? Literally, I call it the Google test. If you go onto Google Images and just put in the words yoke of iron, not slaves, because that would be, if you like, a leading question, yeah, or a leading search. It will filter slave out, then, yeah, but just yoke of iron. That's broad. That's a broad term, yoke of iron. There's lots of animals who have yokes of iron around their neck. Okay? Interestingly enough, and I don't know if the algorithm has changed now. I haven't looked in a while, but but I don't believe it has changed. If you do that simple broad search, yoke of iron, okay, on your phone, if you've got a smartphone or anywhere where you have access to the internet, look at the images that come up. For the most part, you'll find it's the slaves from the transatlantic slave trade. Because you see, this is something specific that happened to our people, yeah, to our ancestors during the slave trade. Okay, literal yokes of iron. I've been to Ghana. I've been to Cape Coast, the slave dungeon, and Elmina slave dungeon. Very moving, very revealing. And in fact, in Ghana, there's so much history and culture surrounding slavery. Okay, we've literally seen, me and my wife, we've literally seen these yokes of iron, the literal ones that are literally, found in the excavations, found in the when you're digging around, yeah, and being displayed, in museums, yeah, for all to see. Literal yokes of iron placed upon the necks of our people, and small miniature ones for the children. All right, a very real, sobering episode in history. Okay, literally happened to us as a people. Which other people can attest to this? Okay, you have to ask yourself. Yeah, when did any other group go through this? And I'm talking this collection of persons that you can bring together and say you fitted every single one. Okay, no wonder we saw earlier that these would be a sign onto Israel as to who they are, because it eliminates everybody else when you bring them all together. Yeah, very, very interesting, very revealing. Okay, let's take a look at another curse. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 54. Remember, there's many of them, and I encourage you to look at Deuteronomy chapter 28 in its entirety for yourself, at your earliest convenience. But I'm just picking out some here that, straight away, it becomes apparent who this is pointing at. All right. So Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 54. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil towards his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. You what? You what? Let's have a look at that again. All right. So that the man that is tender among you. So this is saying, look, even somebody who starts out would think, oh, such a nice guy. Yeah. Even the man that is tender among you, not rough. Yeah. Not a thug. Yeah. Tender among you, delicate. So his eye shall be evil toward his brother. I don't know of a people like our people, like the descendants of the slave trade, yeah, who do so much, have this evil eye towards themselves, even in adversity. All right, we're known for it, yeah, with the black and black crime. Now you do get, wherever you go, you find crime, yeah. But I'm talking symptomatic of a deeper issue here, yeah, that will even cause others, even though you find crime amongst any other people, amongst themselves. Don't get me wrong here, but even amongst those people, yeah, they can look at our people, the descendants of the slaves, and said, "Wow, but you guys take it to another level." Yeah, our people, we know this. I mean, anybody who's ever, been to the community meetings and had discussions amongst friends, family, and all sorts, can attest to this. That why is it that we have this issue where sometimes there's like a jealousy amongst us? We'd rather see somebody from another nation excel and do well than our own brother excel and do well. Yeah, not everyone. There's always exceptions, but I'm talking on the whole. All right. We see this as one of the problems. It's one of the reasons why us as a people can't thrive, because we don't support one another enough. All right. We know that. We know anybody who's from our communities and is honest can attest to this. All right. So evil toward, yeah, black and black crime, evil towards his brother and toward the wife of his bosom. All right. Again, it, the amount of um, infidelity and unfaithfulness. Yeah, we all know this. Yeah, the whole gallus thing. Yeah, the whole breed up enough woman. Yeah, we know this. Yeah, so that goes along with a lot of the cheating that goes on. All right, we see this in our community. Um, you just don't find it like that. You know, the denigration. We in the music, literally calling our own sisters and women hoes. You don't find this sort of degrading, this degradation of the women as much as you do in our community in other communities. All right, there's a reason for that. There's a reason why we have all these social ills, if you like, and problems in our family structures. There's a reason behind it, and actually, it's because we are a people that the scriptures are pointing out here. All right. So, evil towards his brother and towards the wife of his bosom and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. We as a people, the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade, are famous. We're known for men leaving their children. I myself was brought up single parent family. It's my mother that brought me up. Most men, not all, but most men I know from our people say the same thing. Brought up in a single parent family. There's a reason for that. Okay? So we see that here. Yeah? Now, does this happen in other nations? Do other nations leave their children? Yeah, of course they do. Of course you can find this in other nations and other people. Of course you do. But on the scale, yeah, they're not known for it. Europeans aren't known for leaving their children. Aren't known for it. Chinese aren't known for it. The Jewish people called Jews today, funnily enough, are not known for that. Yet Israel would be known for that, according to the scriptures, because it's one of the curses that would come upon Israel. Yeah. So we're known for that. We're known for dysfunctional family structures and predominantly one-parent families. And of course, you get the flip side. You've got men who do look after the children within our communities. So don't get me wrong. There are always exceptions. The point is, on the whole, as a nation, the vast majority, the highest percentage. All right, that's the point. Okay. Let's look at the women. The tender and delicate women among you. So again, lovely lady. Her I shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom. I, I mean, even just the other day, I'm constantly hearing brothers talking about their counterparts among the women. All right, and a lot of men are actually, actually take issue with some of the attitudes amongst our own women towards them. All right, there's a pulling apart as opposed to bringing together. Not there are exceptions, but as a people we find this. Yeah, as a people we find this. All right. So I shall be even toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter. And what do you mean by that? All right. And again, we find that amongst our communities, there's a lot of pushing and influencing. I'll give you an example, like even Planned Parenthood in America, which was founded by Margaret Sanger. All right, they're heavy on trying to get our women to have abortions. All right, and I know there's there's a whole debate around that. All right, but you know, it's according to the scriptures. According to the scriptures, you know, that's a no-no. All right. But anyway, just showing that this dysfunctional family unit, yeah, this breakdown in family, this breakdown in trust, this breakdown in fidelity, yeah, this cheating on one another, and this conflict between man and woman amongst the Israelite community, and we see that played out in our communities. Yeah. Okay. Let's have a look at another one. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Okay, so again, this showing us that we'd be scattered. Funnily enough, if you look at the history of most of the nations, you always, sometimes it's hidden, but if you do the research, and for those scholars who have, who we appreciate, you'll find that we've been there, or there's pockets of us there under persecution. Yeah, you find our people in India, you find our people in the Far East, clearly in the Americas, clearly in Europe. So then, but the point here is, you see, scattered everywhere, but no one designated homeland of our own. All right. So this is very, very interesting. Yeah, there's places like, for example, in the other parts of the continent of Africa that where we settled to, but clearly, like the Ashanti elders know, like the Igbo elders know, okay, originally we came from Israel, and clearly we don't have access to Israel today as a people. Okay, now some have established a community out there, like in Dimona, in modern day Israel, but guess what? Surprise, surprise, they're pretty much persecuted there by the rest of the Jewish community, the so-called Jewish community, of those of the European persuasion. Yeah, they're our people. So no matter where we go, these curses would follow us. All right. So we see that there. Okay, let's have a look at this one. Again, as a nation of people, who has this happened to? Yeah. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Now, I mean from the King James here, right? With ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Now, what does this mean? Well, I think some of the images here give it away. Yeah, what you can see on the screen. Okay, so let's break this down. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Well, Egypt again. Why say Egypt again? Okay, well, historically we were in Egypt. Yeah, remember Moses, Masha, Pharaoh, let my people go, and all the rest of it. Okay, and if you actually go to Exodus chapter 20, verse 2, it actually identifies that Egypt is also termed the house of bondage. Yeah. In fact, the Hebrew word for Egypt is actually Mizraim, which actually, in the Masoretic pronunciation, that is, which actually alludes to struggle, bondage. Right. So for us, for an Israelite, Egypt was synonymous with bondage. Yeah. If you're speaking about bondage, you're speaking about Egypt, because it was that bitter bondage, for so long, for 430 years. All right. That it became synonymous with the word bondage. So to go into Egypt again is to go into bondage again. That's the point. Yeah, and perhaps we'll do further breakdowns of that going forward. But as it's written, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt, so bondage again. But this time with ships. You see, before there was no ships involved. It's a continuous landmass. It was a continuous landmass to get from Egypt to Israel. Okay, obviously there was no Suez Canal back then. Okay, so it wasn't. There was no interruption. It was a continuous landmass. Yeah, you could walk. There was no need for ships. All right. So what this is saying something else now. This is, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again. Now, funnily enough, in last days prophecies, we are told that we're in Egypt even today. So clearly not the land mass, the literal location of what we think of Egypt today with the pyramids. Yeah, but Egypt as in bondage still. You see, because that's even turns up in last days prophecies. You see, it's a code word. Egypt is code for bondage. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. By the way, whereof I spake unto thee. So exactly as I'm telling you is exactly as it's going to happen. Yeah. And this is yeah, and shall see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold. This is a trade. Yeah. Sold for what? Sold, they shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen. Bondmen is slaves, slave men. Bond women, that's slave women. So you're going to be taken on ships. See, this is one of the curses. Yeah. Don't keep this covenant. At some point, you're going to be taken on slave ships, some of you. All right. And when you get to the other side, you're going to be sold for slaves, bondmen and bondwomen. Yeah. And no man shall buy you. Yeah. Some people get confused with this wording here. They're thinking, well, no man shall buy you. That means you wouldn't be a slave then. If nobody bought you, then how are you a slave? What's that talking about? Well, we know that we must have been bought because we already saw earlier on that it says, and there ye shall be sold. So if you're going to be sold, wherever there's a sale, you're going to have a purchaser. So we were bought. What the word down here, when it says, and no man shall buy you, in the Hebrew, it's actually the word kana, which more alludes, the more correct translation then is redeem you. No man should redeem you. Okay? Because one way in which you could redeem a slave, yeah, was actually to buy a slave, right? And then set them free. That was one way to redeem a slave. All right. So no man shall redeem you, as in no one will set you free. That's the point there. Yeah. No one shall quana you. Yeah. No one's going to redeem you. Nobody's going to set you free. So it's perpetual. And we saw that, didn't we? We know that about the slave trade. It was from, there's so many different types of servitude. Yeah. Not all slavery is the same, by the way, around the world. Yeah. There's many different types. There always has been many different types. Sometimes you were a slave only for a limited time. And it wasn't inherited by your kids. Sometimes you just needed to pay off a debt. And then you'd have to work your period of servitude until the debt had been paid. Then you were free to go. Okay. But what we're talking about here, what we saw in this transatlantic slave trade, was this perpetual slavery. People were being born into slavery. That's a completely different level. Yeah. The study of slavery itself is very, very interesting, but that's suffice to say just that for now. So question is, who's this happened to? Alongside all the other curses. Yeah. So it really starts to filter out and narrow down the peoples of the earth when you go through these curses, and that's the point. All right. So I've got a screenshot here from a website to do with African origins. It's actually slavevoyages.org. Very, very good website. Very good website. Okay. Actually put up there from, I believe it's from in Harvard University, the W.E. Du Bois Center or Division of Harvard University. Yeah. So very, very scholarly, very well respected. Yeah. And they have a very powerful search tool where you can actually search. They've got the data, you see, of the slaves, a lot of the slaves on the during the slave trade. You can find out which boat, which country, the embarkation point, yeah, the year of the voyage, even the ship name. Yeah, it's really powerful. The gender. So, people weren't just thrown onto the ships. There was records kept. Yeah, very, very precise records kept. And the original names. We've all seen the scene in Roots, what's your name? Kunta Kinte, Whip. No, your name's Toby. What's your name? Kunta Kinte, Whip. No, your name's Toby. All right. But what we've got here is some of those original names. And the amount of Hebrew Israelite names is phenomenal. Right? Again, clear indication that who are these people who were put on these ships? Yeah. Why did John Hawkins, one of the most prevalent and most successful English slave traders, why did he travel with Hebrew translator? All right. There's reasons for all of this. Okay. All right. What I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to stop there. All right. Because there's enough to be getting on with there. So that was just some of the examples of some of these curses. Now, remember, the point is this. You take those in isolation, you can pretty much find somebody of another nation who might fit that specific curse. Okay. The point is that you've got to look at this as a collective, as a people who, as a people on the planet Earth, have been and are still experiencing the after effects and the legacy of these curses, and actually still seeing these curses today. Who's still suffering in their communities today? Who's still seeing other nations coming into the community doing well while their businesses tend to, to falter? You get exceptions, but you get the point. Yeah. Who's this happening to? Yeah. Which people went into slavery and had yokes of iron on their neck? Which people are looked down upon for the most part by other nations? Yeah. The more you look into it, the more it becomes abundantly clear. Yeah. Abundantly clear. All right. So, so much more information, but there will be other videos coming. All right. It's clear to me and to many others like me. Like I said at the beginning, yeah, this is the information going out there. If you're supposed to see it and get it, you will see it and you will get it. If you don't get this, if it doesn't resonate with you, that's not down to me. Okay? And I'm not trying to get you to see it my way. This message is going out to those of you who do resonate. If this resonates with you, if it's causing you at the very least to think, wow, I need to look into this further. I need to pray about this for those of you who pray. I need to pray about this. Then I would encourage you to do so. All right? I would encourage you to do so. You're not alone. And when we go forward, we're going to see that. That's why it actually says the return of Israel, but I'm going to stop it here. But that's what we'll be looking at. Because in the same way that the scriptures focuses on a specific people, and when you look into it biblically and historically, you'll find that actually it's us. I'm talking to you, my brothers and sisters, the descendants of the slave trade. There are other pockets of people from the nation of Israel as a whole. They're all 12 tribes, and some of those tribes have we've all come under the curses, but some of us have come under the curses in different ways. Yeah? But this message here is primarily going out to those of the transatlantic slave trade. All right? That part of our nation. Okay? It's you, brothers and sisters. You are Israel. You're God's chosen people. If you've ever wondered why is this happening to our people? Why have we had it so hard? Why do we experience all these social ills? Why are we at the bottom of the pile? Why do we find it hard to get on together, to build, despite our attempts? Why do we keep marching and marching? Why have we had things like, why in America have you had the civil rights movement? Why have we've had Marcus Garvey come and go. We've had Martin Luther King, Malcolm X come and go. Yeah, we've had so many movers and shakers in our communities, all of whom have done wonderful based on what they knew. All right, wonderful contributions to our people. But why are we having to say, whether you agree or disagree with the Black Lives Matter movement, why are we having to use those words in the first place? Isn't that in itself revealing in this day and age, in 2020? People feel the need to say Black Lives Matter. Yeah. So, there's a reason for that. There's a reason why we've been under so much persecution and affliction and oppression. Brothers and sisters, it's because you are the children of Israel, children of Yasharal. You're a very, very special people. You're a holy people of a holy bloodline. Okay? But we lost our way. We lost our way. We lost our history, our culture, our heritage. And as a people who have lost everything, We want to cling on to anything that remotely will give us a sense of identity. I know that. I've looked into Kemet and wanted to see myself as, ancient Egyptian, and or whether there was any credibility to that. Yeah, and others as well. Other, if you like, philosophies, perspectives. All right, but you're the children of Israel. Okay, we can see this historically, biblically. You're the children of Israel. So, for those of you who pray, pray about it. For those of you who like to research it. There's lots of ancient material as well as material coming out all the time. All right. Now, in the next installment of the video, what we're going to start to do is look at what the prophecies say about the return of Israel, because actually we're at that time. My brothers and sisters, don't lose hope. Something amazing is about to occur, and it's actually started. You might not be able to see it yet, but something amazing is about to occur for us as a people. This is a great time, actually, to be alive. It's a great time. And we're going to really start to see why. Okay, I'll leave that for the next installment of this series. I hope you found that useful. Yeah. For those of you who have, if you'd like to take this further, if you'd like to get in contact with me, all right, then the email, yeah, I'm using an email address, which is IsraelAwaken7, all one word, IsraelAwaken7, not the word 7, but the actual number, the digit 7, yeah, at gmail.com. I think I've left it somewhere in the video description, I do believe, but there you have it. All right. So if you've got any questions, if you'd like to know more, all right, if you're just feeling lonely, all right, then please send that email, yeah, to get in contact with Israel Awake, the Israel Awake Assembly. All right, please do. All right, because I'm aware that some people will be waking up and may feel very alone in all of this. Yeah. For those of you who've got lots of people around you and a big support network of people who are also waking up at the same time, that's wonderful. All right. But we don't want to leave anybody out or behind. All right. If you like to know more, got questions, please feel free. Okay. Also, let's all work together to get this information out there amongst our people. All right. So please do, if you would, please like this video, because that also helps to promote it. Yeah. A thumbs up to this video if you would. Subscribe, because there'll be forthcoming videos as well, and I'd like you to be notified as the videos come out. Yeah, so please do subscribe to the Israel Awake channel, YouTube channel. Okay, and please share where you can. Please share where you can. Okay, that's enough to be said for now. Okay, I look forward to the next installment. Too, and kind of just say for now, the Most High bless you, guide you, and protect you and yours until next time.